Hi, welcome to the first of my Blenderful Basics classes. So you get to see my messy desktop and we're going to open Blender. Now, normally I would go to my hard drive because what I've done is on my external. I store Blender on my external hard drive and launch it from there. It will run on an external hard drive. And that just helps me to remember to save stuff to my hard drive, my external. And that way, should something happen to my computer, I have my work there ready to go to another computer. Okay, so that's just a little extra tip. So we're going to open Blender. Maybe, there we go. And here's Blender. And it's always going to come up with this screen, so you just click somewhere and that goes away. The default setting for Blender is always going to show you this cube to start with. Why? We don't know. Alright, but what you do is you hit delete and poofy, it's gone. Now, one of the first things you're going to notice, and let me shrink all this so it's all into view for you. There. And, oh, I can't do that. Let's do this. Move it up. And shrink it some more. See, you can see this was all live. And Blender will never open the same size that you shrink it down to like this, so that's why I didn't even bother trying to set that up. Okay, so that's enough. You can see everything. And this is the basic default user interface that you're going to see anytime you open Blender if you don't save your own settings. Now, I'm going to, in the description, give you instructions on how to change things around to make it more comfortable for yourself, and so it's not this ugly. But I'm not actually going to change it because if I do, I won't know how to change it back. And I always keep mine on the ugly, awkward default setting because one of the things that always drove me nuts when I would watch tutorials would be the people who had their own personal preferences and it'd be laid out really nice and pretty and all. But then when I went to do something, I didn't know how to find it because I had the default setting. And none of them used the same layout, right? So to make it easier for people who are watching me trying to fumble through and learn the little bit that I know, I keep mine at the default. So, and now I'm so used to it, I don't even notice. Alrighty, so now Blender Basics. First, in the prior videos, I haven't taught you a whole lot of good practices yet. I've just trying to teach you how to get into it and learn how to shape things and see how they're shaped and a few tricks and stuff. So today we're also going to learn some good practices, okay? But first, let's go over what we're looking at and how can we change it around a little. We'll start on the right side. Over here, we have our hierarchy, our scene hierarchy. Hello. And in here, it's telling us what we have in our screen right now. So right now we have a camera, which is this. And we have a lamp, which is that. Now, be very careful. If you click on one of those and then go to work on something, you'll be not doing anything. So to unselect that, we can either click on it, shift click, hello, and it goes away, or you can press A, which will either select everything in a scene, or if it's already selected, press A again, and nothing is selected. So that's pretty handy, okay? Under here is where we have more information. Let me pull this out a bit. Okay. So for instance, we've got this says camera. So this is telling you everything about the scene and what you can do with it. And as yet, I have never worked with this. So we're just kind of rush past that. Render layer, again, nothing I've worked with. Remember, I'm not an expert. I'm just someone trying to share what little they know to make Blender less scary. So go over here, more stuff here. Now, this one I've actually worked with, but only when I've had working on like an avatar or something. Okay, and since there's nothing in here yet for us to see, you really can't see everything. And then this is the physics button. We learned about that in the first vid. Okay, So I'm going to push that back over there. Over here on the left-hand side, we've got our Tools panel, which tells us what we can do with any given object we have rezzed out and ready to work with. Okay, and these will change as we actually have something in there to work with. Okay, create. This is kind of fun. We can just right from here add our objects instead of going down here like I always showed you. Okay, and we can add a plane, a cube, a circle, a UV sphere, an icosphere, a cylinder, a cone, and a torus. We can add a grid and a monkey. Yes, you could add a monkey, see? Ta-da! And we have a very kind of ugly monkey. So we'll put that there. And delete, because it's kind of ugly. Curves, Bezier or circle, NURBS curve, NURBS circle path, and then our lamps. Now usually when I add a lamp, I add a Hemi, because that's the brightest one and I like to see what I'm doing. And then there's other things we can add. A lattice, which is basically a wireframe box. Delete. Okay. Relations. I've not worked with this. Animation. So this is where we would do our animating. Remember, Blender is a multi-tool, a Swiss Army knife, if you will, of game engines, because it is also an actual game engine. You could create a game in Blender and do everything you need to create the game. It is, and it's open source and free, and it's very well supported. It's really kind of awesome. Physics, put in your physics. Grease pencil. Now grease pencil is kind of cool. You can use grease pencil to create mesh instead of trying to, so for instance, if we had something in here, you could outline it and then work it a bit and make your mesh object that way. Kind of cool. But that's really advanced. So we're going to go back to tools now, and I'm going to pause real quick. All right. Oh, and by the way, the instructions for how to change this around and personalize it came from our dear friend Kadija. And so Kadija, thank you. So I want to make sure she got credit for that. Now, remember I said that I'm not an expert. I'm really not. And so I learned something new too. But hold on, I just got a Skype that I have to answer. So I actually learned how to do something consistently using the, I'll show you because now I can't even remember what to call it. So add mesh, we're going to add a plane. And why are we going to add a plane? Well, planes are great because they start out as low poly. And you remember, no, I used a prim, so I didn't use a plane. So this is going to be new for you. Yay. A plane is just that, a plane. It's got the top and it's got the bottom. Now you see the bottom is really, really dark. That's because it's not actually there. Okay, but this right now is one face. You can see 2 tries, very low poly, gotta love it. That would just be perfect to use for a floor as is. But you can do so much more with that. And I'm going to show you. We're going to scale it a bit though so you can see. So S for scale. I'm going to just scale on all sides because it's a plane. It won't scale the bottom. It'll just do the X and Y axis all at once. And now we're going to go to edit mode and we're going to subdivide because I'm going to show you, by showing you how to use this other tool, how you can create terrains. And it's beginner. How cool is that? So what do we need first? Well, we know that we need to subdivide, right? So we're going to subdivide. Now, I was taken to task for not showing you to subdivide enough, like in the first class, or make enough loops and cuts, but we both know why I did that, because you can add more. Now, the person who took me to task said, well, it's just as easy to subtract as it is to add. I have not found it that way, but remember, I'm not an expert. So if you find someone who is able to teach you to do it faster, easier, the other way, great, and please share and pass it along. But I've never found a way that works for me, okay? So You know what? I'm going to go ahead and leave that one. Actually, I'm going to take one more off, Control Z, because this will be a really good way to show you the differences. And then I'm going to tab, and I'm going to Shift D, and then go out so you can see. I'm going to pull that one out. I'll line them up a little better because I'm really OCD about that. Everything needs to be centered. And then on this one, we're going to go back, and then we're going to subdivide some more. We're going to do that many now. That's a lot. Okay. Well, it's a lot more than that one, which is okay. Let's tab again. We're going to work on this one first. Center it a little bit. Okay. Tab. Then we are going to go down to proportional editing. Proportional editing. We're going to enable it. This is going to get fun. And the next one tells you what type of proportional you're going to do. There's random, there's constant, linear, sharp, inverse square, root, sphere, and smooth. So we're going to do constant first. And what happens is, we pull this up, and I don't know if you can see it, and of course I just tried to use my finger to point, which you won't be able to see, but there's a circle, and that's outlining the area that will be affected. Now you can take and use the scroll wheel, and you can make that area smaller, okay? Or you can make it bigger. See? And then smaller. So let's do this, and now click on, let's do this area, and left mouse button, but now I want to take and make that small, because I just want to, too small, add a little definition here. See? I'm going to do it this way. And it's, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. Low poly, not bad. Low poly-ish. And we can tell the one we're working on, this one, is 64 faces, 128 tries. All right. Now let's see. Let's have a little more fun. Let me bring it back into center. And I'm going to click, let's click on this one. All right. And now let's change this to sphere. And left mouse button. Oop, left mouse button. It didn't work. Come on. Because I hit the other one first. Come on now. The joys of being live. Let's do it again. Enable. Left mouse button. I'm sure now it's not going to work. There we go. Okay. The arrow. And then do that. Losing my voice. Sorry, guys. You can see it's pulling out a little bit differently. It's hard to tell because there are so few tries for it to work with. So it's sharper more than round. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and we'll try it here. Right mouse button, left mouse button. Grab the arrow with the left. Bring that in to this. Okay. So that's that side. Now let's see what happens if we do all that on this one with the greater subdivides. So I'm going to try to keep them both into view so you can see the difference. 1 second. Alrighty. Alright, get back in view and click, and we'll do this somewhat the same as we did the other, if I can remember. So we're enabled. We're going to click on this. We're going to make it a little bigger though because we can. Ta-da! And I probably should have made it bigger. So let's do Control Z. Come on, there. There. Ta-da! And we'll click over here. Ta-da! You can already see it's quite a bit different. But what else can you do? Well, I'll show you because now we have more than we can work with. So we right mouse button to pick a new area, left mouse button, but first we'll see if this smear, we'll see if this smear looks different. Left mouse button, make our circle for the area. And see, now it's more rounded. Let's have some more fun. Let's see. Let's right mouse button on here. And let's pick another one. Let's do smooth. Hey. I want it to fit right in there. So that's sort of a cross between the rounded and a sharp. Okay. And it almost looks like a breast. So yeah, let's just do Control Z because this isn't a naughty video. All right. So we could go on from there and you could create terrains from this, basically. Obviously this is pretty rough looking, but let's do this. And you can see the difference though. But this one would work for some things, like a nice beach scene maybe, sand, because sand doesn't have a lot of definition. And then of course, click on this, and what we can do is smooth, and now it looks a bit better, see? And that's from a plane. If we do the same thing here, and hit smooth, see? And that is how a beginner can start making terrains. And low poly ones at that. Best practices, low poly is better wherever you can. And the reason it's better, of course, is because of graphics processing, rendering power. It's the old argument, prim, lots and lots of prims are going to lag you out. And also back in the motherland, prims were so expensive to have because, of course, you got so few of them. And that's when certain exploits were created, like Sculpties. But Sculpties were created to enhance, okay, and make it feasible to have more by having less. What happened was people decided they would go all Sculpty, and you'd go somewhere and the bloody place would never res. Do you remember how often you'd go somewhere and all you saw were these oblong ovoids and stuff waiting for them to become something else? All right, it's kind of the same with mesh, except well-made mesh, low poly, can replace prims and be a lower resource hog. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of well-made mesh, because what people did was even for instance, okay, Marvelous Designer makes awesome clothes, right? Those freaking dresses are $60K and up. And some of them are no better than the beginner skirt I showed you how to make, which was very low poly, had the physics, etc. So there's always going to be a little give and take. Now, from here, we can save and export this, and that's how you'd want to save it, export it rather, as a DAV file to use in the virtual platforms we are in, which, by the way, is not always the best format, but that is what SL chose, and that is what we have to use too, because, of course, we use the same viewers, blah, blah, blah. We will cover texturing and other stuff in another class, but I will show you how you can apply textures to parts of this, because this is a nicer one. So what I'm going to do is go back into tab, and let's do faces. Okay, so all these faces right here, let's say we want these to be a certain color. Okay, and then from there, go over here, okay, to materials, and we're going to tell it we're going to add a material, That lit up like the 4th of July, didn't it? Okay, new. And then we're going to go to texture. We're going to say new. Oops. Go down here. Texture, material. I always just say both. I don't know if that's right or wrong. Okay? But that's what I do. And then open. And then you guys get to see my messy external. And we find my fabrics. And let's do Argyle. Just because. I'm just assigning this as a placeholder. So then we go back to our materials and we tell it to assign this Argyle pattern to that. All right, so now that's assigned. And then we would go through and pick another area. Let's do something fun. Let's see if it'll show material. It's not, because I did it wrong. Texture. It's not. Well, screw you. There is a way to see it on there, and I'm not remembering right. So let's pick the top here. Do C, pick a bunch. For instance, I could do all this and then use a water texture there if I wanted. It probably would look really ugly in World if I did that, okay, because there's better ways to make water. But we could do that. And then you would just do the same thing, only you would go over here, you would do this to press anew, and then blah, blah, blah. You would do that for the whole thing. And that way, when you bring it in World, those specific areas, up to 8 different areas, okay, you can apply the different textures to. All right? So, that is how that will work. Let me see. Oh, maybe it'll do it this way now. No, still not. Whatever. Okay. I will leave it here for now for questions and answers, and make sure you check the description for the notes from Kadija on how to set up your area. Okay. And thank you again, Kadija, for that. Big thank you to Damon Lizardman for showing me actually how to make all this without, you know, wanting to throw my computer across the room with the proportional editing. Big hugs. See you in class.